introducing myself first. My name is Kia DuPree. I'm a native Washingtonian. I've been writing pretty much all my life, but my first published novel came out in 2004, which was called Robbing Peter. It actually received the Black Caucus of the American Library Association Fiction Honor Book Award, which was very surprising and exciting because it was also self-published and a lot of my peers were not. And so it gave me a lot of confidence to continue to do what I am doing today. I've published 5 novels now after Robbing Peter was damaged, which was picked up by Grand Central Publishing, which is a subsidiary of Hachette Books. And they actually purchased 3 books for me. So I have Damaged, Silenced, and Shattered. And then I took an 11-year hiatus, got married, had kids, was trying to juggle things. And here I am today, finally with a new book, which I also self-published, and it's called Disentangled. And I'm very excited about it because I think it connects a lot to what's going on today. I mean, we know that Will and Jada had an entanglement, and they definitely brought a lot of light to that word, to that idea about having multiple relationships. However, polyamory and polygamy is not a new idea. It's not a new concept. It happens in a lot of cultures. It actually is happening with people who probably didn't put the label on it, but you know that there are situationships where people have multiple baby mamas and multiple baby daddies, and those relationships might continue. You also have people who are just turning a blind eye to things that they know that their partner is doing in order to keep the peace in the house, in order to keep finances rolling in order to keep the kids happy, right? So these things are happening, it's not new. And so I just decided to write about this from a new angle. How many of you have read it? I think just the 2 of you so far? Yeah, and so reading this book was, writing this book was really, really fun. I created 3. I thought about, okay, what happens when you are single in DC? And how many of you know that today, DC is the loneliest town in America? Did you know that? Like, that's a real stat.
Wow.
Yes, based on Census Bureau data. The Chamber of Commerce analyzed the data, and they pointed out that nearly 49% of people who live in DC live in single residences. That's 1 in 2, right? And so the question for me is, there's so many people who are single, who are living in the same town, why are they not linking up together and forming partnerships? And so, I kind of thought about this with some of my friends, those who are married and single, and we thought about how there's an overpreponderance of negativity on social media about relationships and about roles, gender roles, and femininity and masculinity, and who should be doing what and who's not doing enough of this. And there's I would say, a disconnect in communication as it relates to just trying to be who you honestly are. And I think that keeps people apart. There are these podcasts and these algorithms that are saying that, the person who you're dating isn't doing enough, or the person who you're dating should be doing this, or, they're cheating on you. And so people just are deciding not to partner, which I really think is dangerous because, in all honesty, that could lead to even larger problems with there being less families, being less children, right? Less strong communities. And so the idea of what happens if there is someone who has all the things that one person is interested in, but there isn't enough people, hey Brian, there isn't enough people who are available to actually head those relationships. And so I wondered about, maybe people should consider sharing partners, because I know that there are a handful of very professional men, and I know in my age group, almost all of them are married, right? So what happens when you have a demographic of people who are single, and then there's another demographic where there are people who are married, and maybe there's some other elements that's keeping there from being an availability. Perhaps there people who live a different sexual lifestyle, or perhaps they are people who are incarcerated or unemployed, or just all these other factors that might make a person seem less desirable to someone else. And so I just thought about, okay, I keep seeing people with these dating apps, and I'm saying people, I've been there too, and we just swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. I mean, we have that option now on the phone to just swipe left, and you're not giving people a chance to even open their mouth and say anything before you've already dismissed them. And now you're unpartnered because of that. And so that's kind of where I got this idea to write about polyamory. I actually, on dating apps, I saw that as an option so many times for some of the men that are on there. They were specifically looking for women who were interested in polyamory. And I was just like, well, what is this, and why do I have to even consider that as an option? And so I just wanted to explore that with this character Bree. What happens when you don't really want to hop on a dating app, and perhaps you want to, reconnect with something that's more familiar with you. And so this character partnered up with someone from her past who she later learns is married. And then instead of stopping the situation, she lets the situation continue to develop. So I want to just read a little bit from the book and then give you some time to ask some questions. So if you have the book right now, I am going to read from chapter 5. Which is, it starts with a character named Tiffany, who is one of Bree's closest friends. So, and I do want to just pause a little bit, because one thing about Bree, she's a photographer, and she decides to coin the term breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs for Bree are very similar to what Hansel and Gretel used to do back in the day, right? They would drop breadcrumbs so that they can remember how to get from point A to point B to get out of the wilderness. And so she uses that same idea as it relates to sexting. Okay, so making very provocative photos and videos, what she calls breadcrumbs, as a way to entice Victor to continue to see her. Okay, and so she actually decides to, because she's a photographer and she's good at what she does, she actually decides to open a boudoir studio, which is a photography studio where you take pictures of women in sexy attire so that they can embrace their sexuality and find a sense of empowerment. And she calls the studio Breadcrumbs, okay? So this is where we start. So Breadcrumbs, Tiffany said, it does have a little ring to it. Yeah, I think it's a perfect studio name. And Siobhan put me onto her network, from her web designer to some of the retailers she works with, and even some of her friends who work for the city, who are going to walk me through the application process for an accelerator grant, specifically created for the neighborhood where the studio will be. That's fantastic, Bree. Are you serious? Let me know if I can help too. Yes, I'll definitely need your help. I'm getting really excited now. Something that was an inkling of an idea is being planted like a seed. Who knows what will bloom? And to think Victor helped inspire you with those freaky ass pictures you've been sending him. I giggled. He sure did. Wait, I'm here. I gotta go. Okay, call me later. I was able to get an appointment with Fatu. Her first appointment was with a young child, and apparently it wouldn't take long. I packed a small picnic lunch and made sure all my devices were fully charged, because it would be a long day of sitting still for the type of braids I wanted done. I hated how long it took, but loved the sexy way I looked with them. Not to mention, Fatu was known for her craftsmanship. Unlike the quick in and out African braiding shops doing knotless braids in under 2 hours with 2 to 3 braiders per head, Fatu gave a damn about clean parts as much as the braid technique. The shop was on Georgia Avenue, about a half a dozen blocks from Siobhan's SMC. I climbed the metal back stairs before entering Fatu's modest salon filled with stacks of boxed hair from China, mirrors that could use a nice scrub down, floating synthetic strands, and duct tape patch spinning salon chairs. For as unmodern as the salon was, The braiding was top notch, and people came from all over to get their hair done at Fatu's salon. I had only been twice in the past year since Rich and I first dated. I stopped to save us money. We never seemed to have extra money for any of the things I did to spoil myself, though there always seemed to be money for his lottery, beer, and marijuana. "Hello," I said, entering the shop. There were just two braiders working quickly on two different customers, though one was almost done as she was getting the ends of her long tresses dipped in a steaming hot bowl of water. Fatu was combing a little girl's hair, but her mom was heading towards the door. Fatu yelled across the room, "Ma'am, where are you going?" "I have to run a few errands. I'll be right back," she said. No, it's not okay," Fatu said. "Are you serious?" the woman asked. "You cannot leave her here unsupervised," Fatu stressed again. "Why not? I'll be back in less than an hour," the woman said again. "No, please take her and go," Fatu said. I was surprised Fatu was willing to let money walk out of the door like that. I had seen countless women leave their youngsters behind at the quick in and out African braiding shops all the time. I always wondered how a mom could drop their really young child off without a care in the world. Just leave them alone like that. I thought about mommy leaving me alone for 2 weeks to tour Africa with her boyfriend, and how empty I felt taking Samir to and from school, cooking meals like I was a grown-up when I was only 15. Even though Grandma was my emergency contact at the time, she was in no way capable at her age of coming to save the day from Glen Burnie, Maryland, had I needed her. I made sure I didn't need her either, being extra careful when I cooked, and when I walked Samir, who was only 5, up and down the hill to kindergarten. We ate lots of microwave food, cereal, oatmeal, instant noodles, and hot dogs for 2 weeks. A couple of our neighbors figured out mommy wasn't there, but the hood knew how to mind its own damn business. CPS was never called. Mommy and I never really had the same relationship when she returned either. She was acting like what she had done was normal, but me being left home alone with the little kid was batshit crazy. Fatu didn't back down, and the mom snatched her child out of the seat while cursing about unprofessionalism. A free chair was good news for me. As soon as the door closed behind them, Fatu said, "And what's to happen if the baby has said I hit her or something like that? I cannot take that chance." I nodded in agreement, but kept my mouth closed. "So what style again?" she asked. "Senegalese braids with highlights." "You love Senegalese?" "Senegal is my home, you know." "Really?" I said. "Come sit. I'll start and Latima will finish for you." She snatched a few bags of hair from a box and ripped them open. 3 hours later, she handed me off to the much younger woman who was wearing AirPods. She worked at a much faster pace, finishing the ends of my hair. Fatu sat in the chair across from me, switching between French and another language as she spoke to someone on her speakerphone. As the older woman with bleached, peeling skin spoke, she jostled a handful of cowrie shells in her calloused hand before tossing them casually onto a red side table covered in tribal fabric. Fatu scooped up the shells and tossed them again. She did it for 3 minutes straight before I said, "Fatu, do you mind if I ask what you're doing?" She raised a finger to silence me, and she continued tossing the white shells I remembered reading were once used as money hundreds of years ago in some African nations, but that I sometimes now saw being used as jewelry or for hair accessories. "What's she doing, Latima?" I asked, but she was already in a zone, opening packages of hair and separating strands, those damn AirPods. She didn't hear me. I stared at Fatu as she continued shaking her palm with the shells. A few moments later, she wrapped up her call. "Sorry, that was my friend from Senegal. She needed me." "It's fine. What were you doing with the shells? I mean, if it's not too much for me to ask." "Reading patterns. It's what we do in Africa to share the good and bad news." My eyebrows rose. It sounded like a type of fortune telling. No, thank you, I thought. "Want me to read for you?" "Oh no, I'm too scared to know about my future. Come, I'll just share the good news. You have money?" "The only cash I have is for my hair," I lied. "Don't worry, I just needed to see about you. But here, hold these and throw them on the table." She handed me her cowrie shells, and I immediately thought about germs. It was a pandemic after all. But my curiosity had me jostling the ivory button-sized shells in my palm. My heart skipped a few beats while Fatu smiled. "Come, it's an ancient tradition. All of your ancestors from West Africa, the Orishas, answer questions, and I share the answers with you." "This seems like a bad thing." "No, you let those white folks tell you what's good and what's bad. This is from your people." trust it. At that, I tossed a handful of shells into the fabric and watched them spread in different directions. There's 2 mountains ahead of you. One stretches wide with few paths for you to cross. The other is a bit smaller with many valleys, rivers, springs, and trailways. You're going to have to make a decision for which one to climb. Well, that tells me nothing. The mountain with few paths has slippery slopes and many trees and briar patches, but leads to still waters. There may be danger, but the reward is great. The smaller mountain comes with little reward, but is much safer and easier to travel with a clear, warm path that leads to another small mountain. You must make the right choice in the end. Is this about my love life or? No, child, I do not know the details of this vision. The ancestors say you have everything you need for the journey already, only that you must take your first step in the right direction. Even though Fatu hadn't said much, there was an eerie and yet peaceful feeling taking over me. You lost a baby a year or 2 ago, right? Fatu asked. My heart leapt into my throat, stunned by the specific information. But how could you possibly, I began. It's the ancestors. I did, 2 years ago. You were more than halfway there? I nodded. Tears rose to my eyes. No, she is at peace. At peace, my child, Fatu said. You were once really unhappy. There was much darkness. You have begun to find the light again. Stay on that journey. Lean into the light. I wiped away a tear with my fingertip. Always look for the light and chase it like a hungry lion, you understand? She offered a warm smile. My eyes scanned her face for deeper meaning. Do know, she said, hesitating a bit and looking at the tossed shells once again. This time, even more intently, as if she was doubting what she was seeing herself. Yes? I was beyond curious now. Fatu exhaled a deep sigh before saying, there will be challenges in the months ahead, and you will have to make hard choices. Do not be afraid. God is with you. She seemed to speak directly to my life. I wanted to ask Fatu a dozen questions, but I froze. What if she told me something I didn't want to hear or that I would have to act on? What if it was something I didn't want to do? As if Fatu could read my thoughts, she said, what do you want to know? I stuttered a bit as I sought the right words. Was I supposed to end my relationship with my baby's father? You've already made your mind up about the matter. Now is the time for you to look forward and make yourself happy. Your journey is in front of you, dear child. You need to get to the mountaintop so you can see the view from above. I closed my eyes for a moment and let her words settle. There's something else on your mind, isn't it? A little, but I don't think it'll appear in your shells. She nodded, removed her wig, and dropped it on the table. I tried to ignore the bald patches, tufts of gray hair, or singed fingertips, but I couldn't. I focused on what I wanted to know. What do you know about polygamy? Polygamy? Fatu laughed a bit before scratching her dry scalp with a fishtail comb. She sucked the back of her teeth before she said, you American women are always so fascinated by polygamy. What's the big deal? Are we? I asked, surprised. I wanted to broach the subject with Victor because I was open to it. I've been curious since Mommy admitted she nearly made the leap with Adam Bombay when I was a teen. Back then, I was disgusted by the mere thought of sharing a husband. But that was before I realized there were far more single black women than there were black men available. Yes, this question always comes up from you black Americans. It is no big deal. Most of you are in broken polygamous relationships anyway. So Fatu assumed I was anti-polygamy. But the whole fact that a man's body was designed to impregnate multiple women at a time until their death, while a woman's body was designed to literally pause for 40 weeks to carry the man's seed, made me feel like it could be unnatural for a man to couple with one woman for life. Your black American men have a family on every block, in every state, but he doesn't care for them, doesn't take care of the bills in each house, doesn't spend time with his children, doesn't care for the in-laws, doesn't teach his boys to be men, and doesn't dote on his daughter, much less his woman. Many of them come to you with nothing but promises and false dreams. They take. But in true polygamy, following African tradition, he takes care of his family, no matter how many wives he has, and his wives